Do you want this in between our chairs? That'd be better. Not over?
Where do you want me to sit?
It's up to you. I just saw your iPad there, so I moved your stuff here. Okay.
And then I can put my water on the floor and nobody will knock it over.
Well, I can move this table too, if that would be better.
It's okay. All right.
Do we have to do anything to get started?
No, you go.
Or just
right
go on
ahead.
up?
Yep, go on up.
All right. All right, you sit here and I'll let you know. Just wait. Just wait. No. We're good. She's good. Yeah. No. Yes. Yes. That's right. Good morning, everyone. Congratulations for braving this weather and coming out today. Well done, everyone. My name is Laurel Jernigan. I'm today's worship associate, along with Reverend Kathy and my daughter Annabelle. We are going to be bringing today's service to you. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Asheville. We are glad you're here, whether you're a congregant or a visitor. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, however you identify, you are welcome in our faith community. If you're visiting here in the sanctuary, welcome. And if you're visiting online, you want to learn more about us, click the link in the chat box. And while you're in the chat, we invite you to introduce yourself and let us know where you're watching from. We are glad you're here. Now let us prepare for worship with today's centering music. Our music today is graciously provided by Andrew Finn McGill and Dr. Les Downs, our music director. That was beautiful, thank you. As we light our chalice today, we will be hearing words from Reverend Scott Taylor, steadied by each other. Pulled in many directions by the demands of our days, we light this chalice to remind us of the still point deep inside. Made unsteady by the winds of unpredictable paths, we light this chalice to remember the shelter of each other. Longing for lights that lead us back to our truest selves, we kindle this chalice to illuminate the faces of friends and sacred companions, recalling once again that we find our way through the willingness to take each other's hand.
Good morning. Happy New Year. Wow, 2023. I'm Reverend Kathy Harrington. I'm the interim minister of this congregation. My opening words this morning are by the Reverend Gretchen Haley. We are creating here a container that can hold every part of us, all. Not hold as in hold us down, hold as in hold me, know me, belong me, into bigger being. And hold as in pause. Hold as in place on hold. For this too fast life, this marbles under our feet world that has us spinning and struggling to remember our names and that we are all called beloved. We are creating here, not as in building from scratch, but as by freeing our breath, liberating our atoms, these offerings of our body, our being, writing a story spacious enough for all these lives to show up, making a life large enough that every part of us is welcome. That we might hold our wholeness, heal our brokenness, and then become together already as we are. Come, let us worship together. It's so good to be together again and good to see all of your faces. Please rise in body or spirit and join with me in singing hymn number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life.
Our story today is going to be brought to you by both of us. Got it, here we go. It's called The Invisible Boy
by Trudy Ludwig
and illustrated by Patrice Barton. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Even Miss Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. Nathan has problems with what Miss Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside too much. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for the kickball teams. The best players get picked first, then the best friends of the best players, then the friends of the best friends. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party.
The rope swing over the pool was awesome, says JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever.
I'm so glad you guys had fun, says Madison. Everybody did, except Brian. He wasn't invited. At choosing time, while the other kids play board games and read, Brian sits at his table doing what he loves to do best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings.
Thank you for toasting my marshmallow.
Space aliens locked in intergalactic battles.
I've got you now.
Greedy pirates digging for treasure.
Crackers! Arr! Yay!
And superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go.
Hi. Hi, friend. Have a cookie.
On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. What's that? Asked Madison as she points at Justin's food.
It's bulgogi. What? Bulgogi. It's Korean barbecued beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some? There's no way I'd eat boogergi.
And the kids laugh. All of them, that is, except Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it.
I thought the bulgogi looked good, Brian. Yum.
At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away.
You're Brian, right? Yeah, thanks for the note.
Hey, Justin, Emilio calls out from the tetherball court. You're up next. Sorry, I gotta go, says Justin. By the way, that's a really cool drawing, he adds before taking off. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asks the kids to team up in 2s or 3s for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads toward Justin.
I'm already with Justin, says Emilio. Find someone else.
Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up.
What is it? Mrs. Carlotti said we can have up to 3 people in our group. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio, let him work with us. Okay, I guess.
Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in that photograph.
Use your imagination and have fun.
Whoa, cool, says Emilio. What kind of people do you think would live in houses like that? I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story, says Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen.
Do I write that?
Yeah.
Wait, what does it say? Oh, yeah. The crooked story we made up upon the spot.
And there they are working on their project together and having fun. It's lunchtime again, Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. Brian, he hears someone shout. Hey, Brian, over here.
Brian turns and sees Justin waving at him over. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. Cookie, thanks.
Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all.
The end.
The end. Wait till they're done clapping.
So I go to group. Now, children and youth, we invite you to a religious exploration. You will be sung out of the sanctuary and then meet group leaders in the foyer or Sandberger Hall and go to classes together. Look for the adults holding a sign with your grade to find your group.
Parents, if you're new here or visiting today, please escort your children to their class to meet their group leaders and to find out where to pick up your child after worship. We will now sing the children out.
I love having a 9-year-old worship associate. Just does such a great job. Thank you, Annabelle. That was great. So now in the center of our service and in the center of our lives, let us pause to honor the silences of the world. Let us open our hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of pain and the soft, gentle coming of love. I'd like to, before we enter our time of silence, I would like to do a centering prayer by Leif Sigleman. It's called Each Breath. Spirit of life and love, we pause in the stillness to rest for a moment, to quiet ourselves so that we can feel what stirs within us. Each breath draws us closer to the pulse of life, and with each exhalation, we make room for something new. May we find in this gathering the comfort of those who care. May we encounter patience along our growing edges and compassion in our most tender spots. And here, may we find the inspiration and encouragement we need to face our challenges and nurture ourselves. And in the presence of suffering across the globe, may we redouble our efforts to practice kindness where we are, with the hope that the light of our actions travels like the light of faraway stars. May our gestures of compassion and generosity seed possibility. May we travel humbly with one another, choosing reconciliation over resentment as we try to live right-sized. When life presses in and shifts us off balance, when pain assails us, when frustration mounts, may the rhythm of our breath steady us and bring us back to a place of gratitude. Let us share a moment of silence.
Now is the time for acknowledging our joys and sorrows with a candle lighting ritual. If you're in the sanctuary, please feel free to come forward to light a candle. If you are online, please write in the chat box any joys or sorrows that you would like to share with the congregation.
If you have shared a joy, know that we rejoice with you. And if you have shared a sorrow, know that you are held in love and care by this community.
So reflecting on living as an introvert in a noisy world was a challenge for me because I'm not one, but I'm married to one. My husband, Will, is outgoing and interacts with a lot of people in his job, here at church and other places. But he is an introvert, and those things are actually very physically and emotionally draining for him. So to balance that out, he has to have some retreat time where he's not always on. And for those of us who are not introverts, understanding that can be super helpful as we approach our relationships with our introverted friends and family with empathy. And I think I can also learn from the way introverts protect that reset time. For me, as someone kind of actually in the middle between intro and extroversion, I admire those who understand what rejuvenates them and who work to prioritize it. In an increasingly frenetic world, I was checking C-SPAN at 11 p.m. on Friday night. This feels important, and I would certainly welcome more opportunities for quiet.
Thank you, Laurel. So scientists say that the single most important aspect of personality is the north and south of temperament. The north and south of temperament is where we fall on the introvert-extrovert spectrum. according to Susan Cain, the author of the book Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. Our place on this continuum influences our choice of friends, how we make conversation, how we resolve conflicts, our careers, and how we love. And it affects so many aspects of our lives that introversion and extroversion are two of the most exhaustively researched subjects in personality psychology. But we know that poets and philosophers have been thinking about introverts for centuries. Both personality types appear in the Bible, in the writings of the Greek and Roman physicians, and have been researched even in the animal kingdom. Yet today we are still being counseled to be bold and sociable and outgoing. And it's an oppressive standard to which extroverts must conform. It's called the extrovert ideal, which is the omnipresent belief that the ideal self is gregarious, alpha, and comfortable in the spotlight. And sometimes introversion is seen as a second-class personality, somewhere between disappointing and a pathology. It was Freud, blame it on Freud. It was Freud who believed that introversion was just a few steps away from an unhealthy self-infatuation of narcissism. However, he actually regarded introversion as an instrument in the service of a pathology, while Jung, he disputed that theory. And it's easy to misunderstand introverts, and they're often told that there's something wrong with them. Especially when I was a child, being shy was something to be corrected. The author of the book Living Introverted wrote that it took her 40 years to figure out that there was nothing wrong with her. She had been called shy, rude, aloof, a loner, odd, weird, and a host of other negative things by people who simply didn't understand what it means to be different. Like Brian, sometimes introverts feel invisible in our noisy world, competing with extroverts. However, introverts aren't necessarily shy, like, for example, Will. He doesn't seem shy at all. But they often avoid social situations because they are draining. They are not misanthropic, they are not antisocial, they're not timid, insecure, and they're not rude. Scientists have shown that introverts' brains are more self-stimulating than the brains of extroverts, and information is processed differently. This explains why outside stimulation can be overwhelming, because the introverted brain is already quite busy. My husband is actually delighted that I am self-entertaining. At Rosa Parks' funeral, she was referred to as shy and timid, but they said she had quiet fortitude. So Susan Cain asks the question. Rosa Parks titled her autobiography, by the way, Quiet Strength. And Susan Cain asks, why can't quiet be strong? Without introverts, we would not have the theory of gravity, the theory of relativity, Chopin's nocturnes, Peter Pan, Charlie Brown, Schindler's List, E.T., Harry Potter, Google, The Gifts of Eleanor Roosevelt, Meryl Streep, Dr. Seuss, Charles Darwin, Nelson Mandela, Al Gore, Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi. And here's a surprising one, Barack Obama. But perhaps the most famous of all introverts was Moses. When God revealed himself, herself, their self, which I think is their self is better for term for God, in the form of a burning bush, Moses was a quiet shepherd working for his father-in-law. Susan Cain says he didn't even have the ambition to own his own sheep. But he was chosen by God to be the liberator of the Jews. The book of Numbers refers to Moses as a humble man, more so than any other man on earth. Moses could be the poster boy, the humble poster boy of prophet of humility. But he said to God, why me? Why are you asking me? I am slow of speech and tongue. He said that because he had a stutter. Surely God was mistaken. Moses believed he was the least likely person to be a leader. But he was persuaded when God suggested that Moses' brother Aaron could be the front man, while Moses was the speechwriter and the behind-the-scenes guy. So Moses led the Jews out of Egypt and through the desert for 40 years with Aaron's help. And this is in spite of the fact that Aaron was complicit in aiding and abetting the tired and impatient Israelites as they regressed into idol worship. While their leader, Moses, was up on Mount Sinai talking to God. They were thirsty. The people didn't appreciate Moses. They were hungry. They were thirsty. They hated the food. They were tired. They blamed him. They nagged him. And they disrespected him. And when he came down from the mountain, he brought the 2 stone tablets with the commandments, with the sacred rules of God. And when he came down, he couldn't believe his eyes. His people were having a wild party, dancing around a golden calf, doing exactly what God had commanded them not to do. So in a fit of anger, Moses throws the tablets to the ground in front of the people, and they shatter to pieces. There's wonderful midrash stories about the shattered pieces and how putting them together helps us understand the power of brokenness and humility. And even the humble have their limits. So Nobel Prize winner Elie Wiesel called Moses the most solitary and the most powerful hero in biblical history. And he says that his remarkable legacy to humanity was demonstrate what it means to be fully human. He was a man who experienced frustration, failure, rejection, anger, and disappointment as he answered his calling from God. But he demonstrated what it is to be fully human. And as we all know, no good deed goes unpunished. So as an introvert, I'm in awe of Moses. And because I even feel guilty when I decline an invitation to go out to dinner in favor of a book, a good book, and an evening alone. And it is true that introverts recharge their batteries by being alone, while extroverts tend to need to recharge when they haven't socialized enough. Introverts are drawn to the inner world of thought and feeling, said Jung, and extroverts to the external life of people and activities. Introverts focus on the meaning and they make of the events swirling around them, while extroverts plunge into those events themselves. However, Jung said there is no such thing as a pure introvert or a pure extrovert. It's never quite that simple. We all know that. So it's really quite common for ministers to be introverts. Religious leaders from Jesus to Buddha have sought solitude so that they could gain insights and wisdom. When I took a 3-day psychological test before I could become a UU minister, I tested as an INFP at home and an ENFJ at work. I'm guessing, as a hairdresser for over 25 years, I had to adapt in order to be successful. I had to learn to be outgoing. And so working as an ENFJ when you're an INFP, as you described, Will, it can be draining, and we need time to charge by being alone. So identifying an extrovert and an introvert can be misleading, and I would never have guessed that Barack Obama or Will were introverts. But which are you, introverted or extroverted? So here are some true-false questions that can help you discern. I prefer one-on-one conversations to group activities. True or false? I often prefer to express myself in writing. I enjoy solitude. I seem to care less than my peers about wealth, fame, and status. I dislike small talk, but enjoy talking in depth about topics that matter to me. People tell me I'm a good listener. I'm not a big risk taker. I enjoy work that allows me to dive in without a lot of interruptions. People describe me as soft-spoken or mellow. I dislike conflict. Here's one that I relate to. I often let calls go to voicemail. Oops. In classroom situations, I prefer lectures to seminars, and I feel drained after being out and about, even if I've had a good time. So those of you with more true answers are probably on the closer to the introvert scale. And if your answers were false and you are an extrovert, there is power in cultivating that introvert in you. Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, Christianity, Confucianism all point to silence and stillness as the way. Yet in our modern society, it's hard to even find those brief moments of stillness. But we should try. We should try every day. We should try to take that time for ourselves. Eckhart Tolle says, when you lose touch with your stillness, your inner stillness, you lose touch with yourself. You lose touch with the world. When I was living in Michigan, I often sought peace, my peace and quiet, by walking on the beach. The West Shore of Michigan has some of the most beautiful sandy white beaches. And I remember one beautiful sunny, warm day, I was walking on the beach and I saw lots of families with children enjoying the beach, swimming, playing, building sandcastles, laughing together. It made me smile. And it reminded me of the many wonderful trips that I had taking my children to the beach on the east coast of Florida. We lived in Orlando, so it was a little over an hour to get to the one beach that let you have dogs on the beach. I look back on that and I think, how on earth did I have the energy to do that? To get up early and pack a lunch and take 3 young children to the beach. We took our sheepdog, Daisy, who loved to catch the frisbee. She would stand along the shore. And we'd throw it in the crashing waves. And when we got tired, she would entice strangers to throw it for her. So in addition to, packing a lunch, I packed my VW Rabbit with sunscreen, Gatorade, beach towels, clothes, Band-Aids, and my hair cutting scissors because the beach was a great place to give the kids their haircuts. No cleanup, right? Less squirming, clearly the most efficient option. So spending the day at the beach was worth the effort because it was the one place where all 3 of my children were happy at the same time. They were 4.5 years apart. And the drive home was exquisitely quiet, except for the exhausted snoring coming from Daisy in the back seat. It was the perfect mood music for my ride home, which is about as close as I could come to finding stillness in my crazy life. When I traded that Rabbit in many years ago, it still had Florida sand embedded in almost every crevice. And my daughter Leslie had an amazing wardrobe because one of my clients was affluent, and she always brought me hand-me-downs from her little girl. She had about a dozen bathing suits that summer. And my redheaded sons were fair-skinned, so I had to slather them with sunscreen. And I won't forget the time that I managed to miss under the straps of Leslie's bathing suit. By Monday morning, she had a row of blisters on each shoulder. It was a huge complication. By the time I got to work on a Monday morning, taking the kids to 3 different schools, it was equivalent to a Herculean task, getting them there on time and getting to my first appointment at 8:30 in the morning. So, and of course, my son Andy, the middle kid, never could find his shoes. I mean, we always had to do a search for his shoes. And it wasn't until he was 30 years old that he confessed to me that he knew exactly where those shoes were because he hid them. How naive can I be? So I put Leslie in the car to get to the nursery school where she stayed while I worked, and she refused to get dressed beyond her underwear. She was standing in the driver's seat of my VW Rabbit in her panties, crying, big tears rolling down her cheeks, and she said, "Some kind of mother you are, letting a little child get blistered." So carrying the weight of being the worst mother in the world, I drove her to my mom's house and slunk off to work with a cloud of guilt hanging over my head. So as I watched those people, those families on the beach that day, I knew what an effort it is to get your kids to the beach for a day. But I noticed a couple sitting next to each other on beach chairs, and their children were building sandcastles by themselves. And they were looking at their phones. They weren't even talking to each other. They were looking at their phones. They were missing the memories that I have of my children. Of course, that was in the, God knows when was that, the 80s. There wasn't as much, I didn't have a phone to look at. I might have done that. But it was such a good reminder in this time of technology how easy it is for us to lose our memories because we miss them. That's why it requires extra discipline to be in touch with our inner stillness. Technology can rob us of our memories, of our lives, and even our health. When we are too attached to technology, we pay a price. And we become addicted. The stimulation that we get from scrolling, I do this, I'm just saying, this firm is for me, by the way. The stimulation provokes excitement, and we get a dopamine squirt. That's what the scientists call it, which makes us addicted to it. And so, of course, the distractions are deadly. People have accidents while they're looking at their phones and driving. But it also inflicts nicks and cuts on our creativity and our deep thought and interrupting our work and our family life. So technology is rewiring our brains too. So we need to be intentional about putting down the phones and making memories and taking time out. A University of Michigan study found that people learned significantly better after a walk in nature rather than a walk in a dense and urban environment. The barrage of information leaves us fatigued. So insanity is often the logic of an accurate mind overtasked. Cultivate your inner introvert. Give your brain and your body downtime without devices. We can learn something from the introverts and the hermits that might preserve our sanity and make us healthier and happier people. So, pause. Place your life on hold. For this too fast, this marbles under our feet world has us spinning and struggling to remember our own names and that we are all beloved. May it be so. Amen. Please rise and body your spirit now and join me in singing hymn number 1053. So now the moment you've all been waiting for, Charlie Marks is going to give you a ministerial search committee update.
The bar is set very high, I'll tell you. When can you come on a Sunday morning and hear about the beach and Moses and what we should be doing when we're all too busy to do everything else? Anyway, as I promised you a couple of weeks ago, 11:49 a.m. on Monday, January 2nd, the search committee had their Christmas morning. That was the email from the UUA Transitions Office telling us who was interested in us. Remember how we got there? All through September and October, you and we all worked hard at the congressional survey, congregational survey. Which did I say? Yeah, it could be either one. Anyhow, we did that, and we had the cottage meetings and all that stuff. We wrote up this giant document, put it on there, along with the other churches who were in search. So these people looking for a job had all of December to poke through all this stuff. And believe me, they did. Well, when we opened that email on that Monday morning, whew, imagine when you were a little kid and you wanted 19 things for Christmas. We got all 19 things. It was just dynamite. And now the tough part is choosing. We're going to spend a couple of weeks talking with many of these folks and trying to see which of those fit what you asked us for. And then we're going to go quiet for a while. You won't hear from us. You'll probably hear from me, but I won't be telling you anything profound. But we're going to go quiet for a little while we sort through them, talk with them, try to get to know them. And a big deal is we've got to sell us too. Everybody knows Asheville is cool and all that stuff, and we don't have to sell that part of it. We got to sell the fact that this is a rich place. They can come here, and we can figure out how to buy a house and put your kids in school and do all the crazy stuff that these people have to do. And there are lots of them, and they are an amazing group. Amazing. I clicked on the first ministerial record, and I went, oh man, this person will do. And then I did the second one, and I went, wow, that's better than the first one. And there are a few chancers in there, and they were just throwing it out there, of course, to see what sticks. But there are a handful of dynamite people. We are so lucky. So talk to you in a few weeks.
Thank you so much, Charlie. So if you're visiting, we would love to welcome you and get to know you. If you're visiting here from somewhere and would be willing to stand up and tell us your name and where you're visiting from, we'll be able to greet you better after the service. Also, we're very glad you're here. Is there anyone, our ushers are passing microphones around. Is there anyone who's a visitor that's willing to stand up and introduce yourself? Oh, right over here.
Hi, thank you. My name's Jennifer Elaine. I actually grew up in Charlottesville and attended the Jefferson Memorial UU Church there with my family. So I'm not new to UUism, but I have never been here before. I live out in Barnardsville. It's kind of a drive-in, and I'm checking it out. My husband said, report back to me. So, and I guess what drew me here, apart from, childhood connection, was a desire to connect with people who are interested in social justice, because I'm interested in exploring how to be more effective in that area of my life, in community outreach. And so that's what initially brought me here. And I don't know if I have anything else to say. I actually am an introvert, so it's very, I do feel a little bit uncomfortable in the spotlight, but I thought I would speak up, so thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for being brave enough to speak up. Wonderful. right over here.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Shepherd, and my husband and I live here in the neighborhood, and we have 2 young kids. They're in the nursery, and my husband's down there with them. They were a little nervous. This is their first time. But yeah, we've lived in Asheville only about a year, and we've been slow to come back to church because of the pandemic, but now we're starting to visit around and try to find a church home and a church community. So we're very excited to be here and meet some of you all. Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. My name's Kyle. I'm here with my wife, Caitlin, and our 3 kids. We moved to Candler in the middle of the pandemic, and we're out looking for a community. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kathy Cambron, and I've lived in Asheville a long time, but I'm just looking for a community, and I'm attracted to the Unitarian Church because I also have an interest in social justice, and I just admire what the church does, so I'm happy to be here.
Welcome. Anyone else? All right. Thanks. Thank you all so much, and we look forward to talking with you about community and the social justice work of this congregation afterwards. There's lots of people around that can answer questions, and we're just so glad to have you here. So our announcements for the week do run on the slides beforehand, before the service. They're also in the e-newsletter, which comes out on Thursday. It's all described there with links and everything else. If you don't receive that, you can ask an usher, and they can help you get signed up for our e-newsletter. One quick note, if you missed it, there are live poinsettias in the hallway here for the taking. So please take one home. Don't take the unlive ones in the Sandberg Hall. Take the alive ones that are in the hallway here. So those need a good home. This is the first Sunday of the year, and second. It's the second, but that's we're making it the first. Sure, if I wrote checks, I would still be writing 22. So. Our community plate recipient this month is the Mel Hetland Scholarship, which is funded by our church and our church only, and this is a scholarship that is given through the Asheville City Schools Foundation to a local student. We're joined by Ariel Jacobson, who is with the Asheville City Schools Foundation, and she's going to tell us how the scholarship impacts its recipients.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me here today. I'm really happy to be here with all of you on this rainy Sunday. It's really nice. My name is Ariel Jacobson, and I'm the scholarship coordinator at Asheville City Schools Foundation. Just like a raise of hands, how many people are familiar with the foundation? Okay, we have a few. So yeah, we do lots of things at the foundation, and I think, our mission there is to collaborate with community to do whatever it takes to make sure that all children within our school district have the opportunity to thrive. And I think that this scholarship embodies that. This is a scholarship in honor of and in legacy of Mel Hetland, who was part of this congregation, and from what I've heard, embodied equity and justice. So the scholarship ranges from $1,000 to $2,000, and it gives a student the opportunity to explore higher education, whether it's at a beauty school or maybe at a 2 or 4 year university, something like that. And as the person who connects with these kids, who gets to talk to them and hear their stories, on behalf of them, they are so grateful for the gifts that you all have organized and been so generous to give. We have a few students. One is going to graduate this year, and this scholarship has supported him in paying for textbooks. It supported him in paying some housing fees, dorms fees, things like that. And they wanted me to say on behalf of them, they're so grateful for all of you. So thank you for this opportunity, and thanks for your generosity, and thanks for just being part of our community and collaborating with us to, again, make sure all students have the opportunity to thrive. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And just to reiterate, we are the only funders of this scholarship. So I believe we'll be contributing to that this month, throughout the month. But this week, any money that you put in the basket goes to this scholarship, cash-wise. If you put in a check, you can write community plate on it. There's also, if you go online, there's a drop-down to select community plate. But if you just drop cash in the basket today, it's going to this fund, and makes a huge difference. So if you're visiting, if this is your first time here, we invite you to feel free to let the collection plate pass you by. Our service is a gift to you, and your presence is your gift to us. For everyone else, today's offering will now be collected and gratefully received.
For the gifts of your time, presents, talent, and treasure, and we are grateful. It's hard to read.
And Annabelle's going to extinguish our chalice while I read our closing words by Andrew Pakula. As you prepare to leave this sacred space, pack away a piece of this church in your heart. Wrap it carefully like a precious gem, and carry it with you through the joys and sorrows of your days. Let it gently glow, let its gentle glow strengthen you, warm you, and remind you of all that is good and true. May it be so. And now please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing our closing song, Longtime Son.